How did I catch my wife cheating? It was easy, actually. I saw her. We were at a friend's party, an outdoor barbecue, and walking inside to get a fresh drink, I walked past the hallway there, leaning against the wall, my beautiful wife Lainey, with Corey, one of our neighbors. I went completely unnoticed as they were lost in their moment of affection. Shocked, stunned, no horrified, I caught my breath and walked towards them, roughly grabbing Corey's arm and led him away as Lainey's arms waved in shock, her eyes wide and horrified at being caught. I pulled back, preparing to confront him, but Lainey stepped between us. "Stop it, Luke, please," Corey said. "Oh, chill out, man. It was just a hug." With Lainey standing between us, I pulled her arm and led her away. "Get the kids, we're leaving." She pulled back. "Luke, don't overreact. It was nothing." She stood there staring at me, and Corey approached. "Simon, man, relax. Let's go back to the party. I have some snacks I was just about to share." Corey was the go-to guy for snacks at our gatherings. He was a single dad. His ex-wife left him to take care of their 2 kids on his own. He made some extra money by selling snacks on the side. He was also my friend, at least I thought he was. I couldn't shake the anger twisting my gut into a tight knot. The shock of finding them like that horrified me. "Stay away from me and my family. Come on, Lainey, we're leaving." She shook her head determinedly. "No, Luke, we don't have to go. The party is just getting started. Let's relax and have a good time. Please don't make a scene. Stay if you want, but I'm leaving. If you stay, don't bother coming home." I let go of her hand and stormed off. She ran after me, grabbing my arm. "Luke, slow down. Just give me a minute and I'll go get the kids." Corey watched on with a smirk on his face. He was a big guy, the life of the party sort of guy, and I thought he was my friend. We had spent time together, working on cars and doing projects around the house. As we walked outside, he called after us, "You're ruining this, man. It was just a hug." I'm usually calm and easygoing. I've never even had a serious argument, let alone a fight with anyone in my life. But right at that moment, all I wanted to do was punch him. Lainey found the kids who were playing with the other neighborhood kids on the front lawn. Eloise, our oldest, wanted to stay. That worked out well for me since Craig was young and could take a nap when we got home. We lived only 4 doors down. As soon as we burst through the front door, Lainey, who was still angry, took Craig straight into his room and tried to get him to nap. When she came out, I confronted her. "Okay, Lainey, how long has this been going on?" "Luke, I don't know what you mean. It was just a hug." "Bull. That hug I saw this afternoon wasn't the first one, was it?" I shouted angrily. "How long, Lainey?" Sighing deeply, she leaned back against the kitchen counter, looking defiantly at me. "It's been a little while. I'm not sure exactly." Exasperated, I growled. "You don't know. You're involved with someone else and you don't know. Are we talking days, weeks, months, or years? Honey, you're getting upset over nothing. It's been a couple of months, I think." "Upset?" I yelled. "I have every right to be angry, don't I?" Just then Craig came running out, scared by all the yelling. Lainey picked him up and tried to calm him down. She took him back to his room and came back out an hour or so later. I had managed to calm down and was drinking a soda on the deck when she joined me. "Luke, you're getting upset over nothing. It's not an affair. We just fooled around a few times." "A few times? How often?" Her lack of remorse or guilt astonished me. Where was the warm and caring woman I married? Taking a sip of her soda, she replied, "A couple of times a week, maybe. It wasn't a big deal, just something fun for both of us." Shaking my head, I said, "Why, Lainey? Can you explain why? Am I not enough for you?" Looking guilty, she mumbled, "I don't know, it just happened. I guess it snuck up on me. So there's nothing for me to worry about? It's just casual?" She nodded. "I mean, we talked about these things, right? We even talked about experimenting. I didn't think you would mind." "That's not true, and you know it. We never talked about this. You lied to me, you cheated, and it hurts." Caught in her own lie, she got up and disappeared into the house. She came back with 2 sodas. "You're right. I should have been honest with you." "I'm sorry." Taking the soda from her, I replied, "The whole thing is wrong." We sat in silence, sipping our drinks until she murmured, "I'm sorry, I never meant to hurt you." "Yeah, well, it's going to take time for me to trust you again. Give me a chance, I will prove it to you. I won't see him again, I promise." "It's not that simple, Lainey. You lied to me. I need time." She hugged me tightly, resting her head on my shoulder. "Please, Luke, give us a chance." Just then Eloise burst through the door, all smiles. She had her best friend Belle with her. Belle was Corey's eldest daughter. Eloise asked if Belle could stay over. Before Lainey could answer, I said, "Not tonight, honey." They both looked disappointed, and Lainey gave me a quizzical look as if asking why not. Belle looked devastated and Eloise wasn't much better. They usually had sleepovers on weekends since they were inseparable. Eloise pleaded with me, but I stood my ground. After Belle left, I sat Eloise down. "Honey, there won't be any more sleepovers with Belle for now." She burst into tears and wrapped her arms around Lainey for support. "Mom, what's going on?" I replied. "Sweetheart, it's not a good time to talk about it right now." She was too young to understand and ran off to her bedroom crying, "I hate you." She hadn't even left the room before Lainey started. "Luke, you can't punish the kids for my mistake. They're not involved in this. Lainey, if there's even a chance for us, then we need a break. He needs to be out of our lives completely, including the kids. He's no longer welcome here." Shaking her head in disbelief, she muttered, "Luke, we're going to see him everywhere, at parties, at the kids' activities, in town." "Not anymore. I'm serious, Lainey. It'll be a complete break. You're punishing the girls for my mistake. That's not fair. Eloise will hate you for this and I won't support it." "Well, then maybe I should just pack up and leave right now." "Luke, that's not what I meant. I won't see or talk to Corey again, but don't drive a wedge between the girls. They're best friends." Rolling away from her, she snuggled behind me, whimpering, "I'm sorry, I never meant to hurt you." The next day, being Sunday, we took the kids to the park for a picnic. It turned out to be a pleasant day, which kept us from exploding into anger. Although I did notice her texting quite a bit. After dinner, I confronted her, "So, who were you texting earlier?" She grimaced. "It was Corey." I had to tell him what happened and explain it was over. He just wanted to make sure I was okay. I sneered. "Okay, oh what a loser. I have never so much as touched a girl in my life." She grinned reassuringly. "Babe, I know that, but he doesn't. He was just checking." "Well, that better be the last contact you have with him, because if it's not, I am leaving." Monday was a tough day. I struggled all day trying to get my head straight, but it was impossible. All I could think of was what had happened. By the time it was going home time, I was mentally exhausted and just wanted a bit of peace and quiet. I have my own business, a vehicle repair shop situated in town. Apart from my family, it is my biggest love. I built it up from nothing. It started in the shed at home and slowly evolved into a really successful little business, and I loved it. Apart from my family, it was my biggest accomplishment, my proudest achievement. We used every cent we could scrape together to build it up into something to be proud of. We used our house as collateral, so it was all linked together. Now the business was doing well, and we were getting on top of everything. Our finances had never looked better. If Lainey and I split, I wouldn't just lose my family, but the business as well. Everything would be gone. When I walked in, I got the shock of my life. Corey was sitting on the sofa with Lainey. They both looked up as I walked in, and Corey jumped up, walking hesitantly towards me. "Hey mate, can we talk?" I dumped my gear on the floor, leaving the door open. Pushing his extended hand aside, I snapped. "Get lost, Corey, leave. If you so much as talk to anyone in my family again, you and I are going to have a real issue." He gave me a pained glare. "Mate, I just wanted to say sorry for the way things turned out. Bro, if you gave this a chance, you'd see this could work out for all of us, if you know what I mean." "I have no idea what you mean. Go away," I barked. "Just leave." Lainey jumped up and ran over to act as intermediary. "Luke, babe, we just wanted to talk, sort this out so we can remain friends. There will be no talking or sorting out." I pushed her aside as she tried to hold my hand. "Corey, leave. You aren't welcome here, so go away." Shrugging, he glared back and forth between Lainey and me. I think he was waiting for her to back him up or something before realizing he was on his own, and turned and walked out the door. As he walked by staring back at Lainey, I shoved him hard. He bounced off the door and stumbled, falling through the door. "Stay out of our lives, you jerk," I screamed, not caring who heard. I slammed the door as he hit the ground. Lainey stood staring at the door, her mouth hanging open. "Luke, we just wanted to talk. I don't want to hear this nonsense. Mark my words, Lainey. If he ever comes back here, then there will be trouble." I picked up my cast-aside stuff and headed off for a shower and to regather my senses. When I wandered down, Lainey was waiting in ambush. "So what happens now then, Luke?" "I don't know. I'm still trying to get my head together. At the moment, I can't get any traction. You have really messed things up. Just stay away from him." Frowning, she burst out with her own scathing attack. "Oh, don't play the innocent wounded victim. Jesus, Luke, it hasn't changed anything. If you put aside all this stupid stuff, we can get on with enjoying our lives. There's no reason why we still can't be friends." Shaking my head in disbelief, I groaned. "Lainey, I don't understand your careless attitude. You didn't loan him a pot or a lawnmower, you gave him your time. And that's something you promised would be mine. Mine, she screamed. You don't own me. I am my own person, and it's my time. Okay, admit I should have spoken to you first, but stop acting like the world is ending. For me, the world is ending. I barked back at her. At the moment, I can't stand the sight of you, and I am barely able to stop myself from yelling at you. She stepped back, stumbling a little. You don't mean that, Luke, you're just angry. No, Lainey, I am serious. I really dislike you. I stormed out, slamming the door behind me. I drove around mindlessly, ending up down at the pier. I parked up and just watched people coming and going. Now I am sure they all had their own problems, but they all looked happy, and all I felt was anger. A deep down in my guts, anger burning with an intensity I had never felt before. The smug look on Corey's face as he stood there holding his hand out was imprinted in my memory, and it was impossible to shift. What a jerk. As the sun went down, I realized I wanted some form of revenge. I wanted them both to hurt as much as I did. More so him. I wanted to wipe that smug smile off his face. As I sat there, a plan started to emerge. Him I could mess with so easily. Oh my gosh, yes, he was going to be easy. I drove home with a smile on my face. At work, I went through my records. Weeks ago, a guy had come into the workshop with car troubles, but he didn't have money. He offered to pay with drugs. At the time, I didn't even consider it, but now he was going to be part of my plan. Finding his number, I called him to see if he still needed work done, and he said he did. I went over with the tow truck and picked up his car with agreement he would pay me with a dangerous substance ... drugs. The work was easy, and I delivered it myself the next day. Stage 1 out of the way. Years earlier, when my father died, I had to clean out his shed so we could put the property on the market. While cleaning, I found hidden amongst all his dirty old junk several guns. I had stored them at home, hidden away in my shed. I had taken the pistol, an old Smith & Wesson revolver, out into the bush and fired off a few rounds just for fun. That night, I filed all the serial numbers off, and when I finished cleaning them, thoroughly removing the fingerprints. Loading them in a small trunk, including the ammunition and bags of drugs, I threw in a few dollars for good measure, pulling the lid shut. Stage 2 out of the way. That night, after the kids and Lainey were sound asleep, picking up the trunk, I snuck up to Corey's place. This is the part one wasn't sure of. I had no definite idea where to plant the trunk where he wouldn't see it. I figured the shed would be locked, but as I pulled gently on the door, it came open. The stupid, arrogant jerk didn't even lock up. I stored the trunk in a corner and left. Stage 3 complete. The town had only recently got a new police sergeant, and he was a real tough guy, the proverbial new broom out to prove himself. He had annoyed me at the garage as he tried to trace down some stolen car parts. He was a determined guy, like a dog with a bone. I hoped he showed that same determination towards Corey. The next day, I rang the police from a phone box in town and anonymously tipped them off that Corey was involved in illegal activities, and I was worried because he had weapons. The mention of weapons suddenly seemed to generate the level of interest I was hoping for. Back at the workshop. It was almost lunchtime when we heard the sirens and the police cars sped past. The guys in the workshop ran out for a look. Mike yelled out, "Oh man, they're heading up your way, boss." I smiled but said nothing. When I got home, I was shocked to find Corey's kids at our place. What's going on? She shooed the kids off to the bedroom before spluttering apologetically. Sorry, babe, but Corey got busted, and the kids have nowhere to go. We are going to look after them for a few days until he gets his situation sorted. They aren't staying here. She looked shocked at my outburst. Luke, don't be mean. They have nowhere to go. Babe, they aren't causing any trouble. They're already causing problems between us. Luke, sweetheart, calm down, grab a soda and relax. I'll get dinner on the go. Lainey, listen up. I said they're not staying here, and I meant it. Either you get rid of them, or I'm going to pack them up and take them down to the police station myself. She glared angrily at me. Luke, honey, don't be unkind. They're only kids. They haven't done any harm. What the heck will Eloise say? Belle is her best friend. Jesus, it will only be for a couple of days. Get rid of them now, or by gosh, I'm taking them. Flinging her arms in the air in disgust, she swore and cursed me. Sure enough, they were gone within an hour. Eloise was angry, and she gave me an evil, angry stare all through dinner until she couldn't hold it in and hissed, "Dad, why couldn't Belle stay? Because her father has done some really bad things and he might go to jail." Lainey interrupted, speaking sharply. "Don't be ridiculous, Luke. He's not going to jail. He'll be out tomorrow." I stared at Eloise, who had started to sob. Eloise, sweetie, you need to know the truth. Belle's dad is a very bad man, and yes, he might go to jail. He has done some very bad things. You may not see Belle as much as you used to. Lainey screamed angrily. Shut up, Luke, you're scaring her. Scared by the sudden change in our screaming, Eloise jumped down from the table and ran crying to her bedroom. Lainey snarled, Are you happy now? You couldn't keep your mouth shut for 5 minutes, could you? After dinner, I sat down to watch the evening news, and sure enough, Corey had made the headlines. What I didn't know was the extent of his growing operation. He wasn't just growing a couple of plants like I thought. He had walled off one end of the house and turned it into a huge hydroponics grow room. I sat stunned as cameras showed the extent of his operation. With his setup, the number of plants, the weapons and illegal drugs, coupled with over $25,000 they found hidden away, he could be going to jail for a very long time. The next day, it all started to unfold. When I got home, Lainey grabbed me as I walked in the door. Luke promised me that wasn't you that set him up. Jesus, they found weapons there. Corey hates weapons. He never owned one in his life. Playing innocent, I mumbled, What the heck are you talking about? Setting him up? Where the heck would I get weapons? Maybe you didn't know him as well as you thought. It seems they found other harder drugs there as well. She snapped quickly. That's a setup. You know him well enough to understand how he feels about hard drugs. He only dealt in marijuana. Jesus, you know that, Luke. I don't know anything anymore. I thought he was my friend. But I was wrong about that. I thought I had a caring, loving wife, and I was wrong about that too. Forget him. I hope he goes away for a very long time. She leaned back against the wall. Well, you might get your wish. He called today to ask if we could take the kids. Yeah, well, that was a waste of a phone call. The little troublemakers aren't staying here. She grabbed me by the shoulders. Luke, I understand. You're upset with him and me. But don't take it out on the kids. They are innocent. There's nowhere for them to go. Of course there is. There are foster parents or the orphanage. All I know is they can't come here. That particular argument went on for days. Lainey tried to convince me to take the kids. She even brought in some of the neighbors to try and change my mind. It seemed everybody felt sorry for him. They all said they would help us if we took them in. Shucks, my plan for a little revenge had escalated. He pleaded innocent, but the evidence was undeniable. He was in trouble. He wasn't just going to jail. He was going to lose everything. His bank accounts were frozen and all his assets were seized. Under the recently changed laws under the Misuse of Drugs Act, the police could seize anything that they thought was purchased with the proceeds from the sale of drugs. He was also charged with falsely claiming a benefit. He was going to have a difficult time. The kids ended up living with another local single mother, so they could stay in the same school. Life was going to be tough for them. That was the hard part to accept for me. Lainey was right. They were innocent. With Corey dealt with, I now focused my attention on Lainey. With the fallout from Corey going to jail and my refusal to look after the kids, we weren't talking, and our relationship seemed hopeless. We were sharing a bed, but there was no love. We could barely stand to be in the same room together. It simmered away, affecting everything. Both too scared to talk, the tension grew until it became impossible to hold it in. Luke, we need to talk, to figure out where we're going. I nodded, agreed. Maybe the best thing for us is divorce.
What? Golly, I was thinking counseling or something, but no, you're going straight for the throat, huh?
I don't know what else to do. You're right. I hate the way things are at the moment, and yeah, I'm not happy. The one thing I can say is I don't want to sit with some stranger and tell them about our troubles. Luke, I don't want a divorce. I know I messed up seeing Corey, and we should have talked about it. That was a mistake, and I have apologized, but can't we get past that? Talk to me. She giggled. Yeah, it sounds silly when you say it like that, but babe, if we had talked about it, what would you have said? I would have said no. Disappointed or defeated? I'm not sure, but she continued, Hun, what harm was there in it? What happened that made this a world-ending event? How the heck would you feel if I slept with some other woman? She smiled. Is this what this is about? You feel like you missed out or something? How the heck did you get that from what I said? What I am saying is I assumed you would feel the same if the situation was reversed. Well, you assumed wrong. I wouldn't mind, that's what I mean. Babe, if you want to see other women, I'm okay with it. All I want is for you to be honest with me. Yeah, like you were with me. No, I have apologized for that. It was wrong. I should have told you. Tell me this. What would have happened when I said no? She slumped back. I would have tried to change your mind to see if we could find a way to make it work. But what would you have done if I said no? Nothing. If you weren't happy, I wouldn't have done it. So you thought I was going to be okay with it? Yes. I didn't think you would be upset. Well, not like this. Why did you keep it a secret if you didn't think it was a big deal? I didn't set out to do it. Luke, you have to believe me. It just sort of happened. It came out of the blue. I mean, we always got along well, and we flirted a bit. Golly, you know all this. You've seen it. There's a difference between some flirting and being close. Yeah, I know that. I'm just trying to explain what happened. We flirted a bit. He had some really nice weed and we got stoned. Craig and Harper were sound asleep. We had music playing. It was a beautiful day and it just sort of happened. What would you have said if it was me? If you found out I was dating one of your friends, what would you have said? She shrugged. I don't know. I would have been shocked, maybe angry if you didn't tell me, fighting back some tears, she sniffled. I'm sorry, hon. I never meant to hurt you. I'm not a prude and neither are you. For goodness sake, we talked about it. She came up to me. Can we get past this? Could you forgive me? I don't know, Lainey. I thought we were good and it hurts that it went on for months and you kept it a secret. How the heck am I supposed to trust you again? How do I know that anything you say to me isn't a lie? Because I promise you here today that I will never lie to you again. Babe, I love you and it hurts knowing that I caused you all this pain. I don't know, Lainey. We made those promises to each other on our wedding day. Why is now more important than then? I made a mistake, I admit that. I should have talked to you first. For goodness sake, Lainey, you wanted to keep seeing him. You didn't even think what you did was wrong. I made a mistake, I got caught up in it. It was you, wasn't it? You called the police. You reported Corey, didn't you? Smiling smugly, I groaned. Yes, it was me. And you know what? Forget him. Jesus, Luke, you cruel, heartless person. He has lost everything. His house, his car, all his possessions, and worst of all, his kids. He lost everything. Why did you do that? Because I wanted you both to understand my pain. I wanted you to experience my loss. He took something so important from me. I wanted him to suffer Christ. He didn't take anything from you. It was wrong, but it didn't deserve that. Oh yes, it really was. He stole my manna. Oh my goodness, Don't be so melodramatic. You lost nothing. Sitting up, I growled. How do you think I felt finding out I couldn't make my wife happy? How did that make me feel? I'll tell you, it hurts. It hurt a lot and made me feel terrible. So as far as I'm concerned, forget him. She reached out, her chilly fingers gently touching my face. Luke, it wasn't that I was unhappy. You can call it whatever you want, Lainey, but I'll call it the way I see it. Now, every time I run into people, I wonder if they know. Did he tell them? Boast about how he messed around with my wife. Shaking her head in disbelief, she sighed. What a load of nonsense. Nobody's talking about it, in fact. I doubt anyone knows. I think you misunderstood the situation. Corey isn't like that. Things continued. We were back sharing a bed and trying to make it work, but it was really difficult. Every day I had to swallow my anger as some casual comment sparked my simmering rage. I did find some joy from an unexpected source. A young woman brought her car into the workshop needing a regular check. She was in her late 20s, very attractive with beautiful bright eyes. In the car, she had a toddler maybe 4 years old screaming at the top of her lungs, and the young woman broke down as she tried to calm her down. I reached in and took the little girl out of the car, lifting her into my arms. Hey, sweetie, what's your name? She sniffled shyly. Katie. I looked at her mom, who was crying. Would you like to come into the office, have a drink, and chat? She nodded tearfully. As I placed Katie in a chair, I put the kettle on and asked, tea or coffee? She smiled. Tea, please. What about you, Katie? What would you like? She smiled hopefully. Juice, I chuckled. Sorry, sweetie, but all I have is Coke, if your mom says it's okay. When I turned, she was already nodding. I went to the vending machine and got her a can of Coke. As I opened it and handed it to her, I asked, okay, what's the trouble? I assume there's an issue with the car. She nodded as she held her tea in 2 hands, sniffling. I was pulled over by the police, and they noticed I don't have the required documentation. They gave me a week to fix it, or they would give me a warning. I nodded, expecting her next words. I don't have any money. I can barely get by on what I have, and I'm not getting any financial support. Without the car, I am in trouble. Sitting down beside her, I murmured, leave it with me, and I will see what I can do. No guarantees, but I will try. Her face brightened for the first time since arriving. Really? Oh my goodness, you're an angel. I laughed. Save that until I've had a look. Is there someone who can pick you up? It might take a while. She shook her head. No, but it's okay. We can walk. Katie burst into tears. No, Mommy, I'm tired. It's too far. I found a cookie in my lunch bag and handed it to her. Don't worry, honey, I will drive you home. She thanked me with a big smile. What's your name and number? I asked. I'm Sienna. She sighed as she gave me her number. I drove them home, and it was clear as I pulled into the driveway that she was struggling. The grass was almost up to my knees, the gardens were overgrown, and the place looked terrible. As they got out, I said, I might have the car fixed by tonight, but that depends on what's wrong with it. She repeated tearfully, I don't have money. I can't pay you. I nodded. Yeah, I understand. We can figure something out. Poor thing, I sighed quietly. When I put the car up on the hoist, it was obvious that there were multiple issues with this vehicle. The driver's sideball joints were in bad shape. The CV joints were damaged. It needed at least 2 tires. The ones in the front were almost completely worn out, and the ones in the back might barely pass. When you added in the need for new windscreen wipers, indicator lights, and the fact that it ran poorly, this was going to be quite costly. Darn it, what was I thinking? Taking a deep breath, I got to work. The ball joints and shock absorbers were easy to replace, as were the tires, but I had to order the new CV joints. The rest of the day flew by as I replaced the air filter, spark plugs, and gave it an oil change. I had to call Sienna to let her know that the car wouldn't be ready until tomorrow. She sighed sadly, explaining that she had planned to go to the supermarket. In for a penny. In for a pound, I replied. Get ready, and I'll pick you up in 30 minutes. Lainey wasn't happy when I told her I wouldn't be home for dinner, but she never asked what I was up to. I picked up Sienna and Katie, and they both looked nice. They had put effort into dressing nicely. I drove them to the supermarket and walked around with them as they shopped. It was clear as day that Sienna could barely afford anything. She had a list and chose the cheapest items available. As we walked, I started adding more items to the cart. Katie watched and started doing the same, smiling like we were playing a game. Sienna became frantic. Stop it, Katie, please. I can't afford all this stuff. I chuckled. Hey, this stuff is on me. We can figure it out later. Katie got really into it, and by the time we reached the checkout, the cart was overflowing. Sienna complained when I paid for everything. I said, no worries, we can sort it out once we get to your place. When we pulled up outside their house, I helped carry all the bags inside. Sienna grabbed my arm. What is going on? Tears streamed down her quivering cheeks. I can't afford this, Luke. I have no money, don't you understand? I have no money. Sienna, don't argue with me about this. You clearly need some help. Please just accept the groceries. She sobbed and held onto my arm tightly, resting her head on my shoulder as she wiped away her tears. Thank you. We carried the bags inside, and surprisingly, the place was clean. It was spotless, even though it was old and run down. Wow, you could eat off the floor. Luke, why are you doing this? I shrugged. I don't know. I've done some messed up things lately, and I need to make things right. She looked up at me. Luke, I'm not going to be with you. I hope you weren't expecting anything. I chuckled. Sienna, you are a very beautiful woman, but that's not why I did this. I just wanted to do something nice for someone who needs a lift. She wrapped her arms around me, and the tears continued to flow as she cried. Her whole body shook with emotion. Katie grabbed onto my leg and started crying as well, just mimicking her mother. As I walked back to the car, I looked around their yard, which was a mess. The lawns and gardens were overgrown. As Sienna walked me to the car, I asked, what happened out here? She groaned, visibly embarrassed. The lawnmower broke, and I can't afford to fix it. Don't you have family or friends? She shook her head and sighed. No, I moved here because of my ex-boyfriend's job. When he left, I was alone. We hugged again. I'm sorry, Sienna. I'll bring your car back tomorrow, hopefully. How much will it cost? Nothing. Maybe if you win the lottery, you might remember me. As I pulled up at home, I was overwhelmed with emotions. Why was I helping? Why did her situation affect me so much? Was it just guilt? Lately, I had been feeling guilty about what happened to Corey's kids. I knew from what Lainey said that they were living with a single mom who was friends with Corey, but I could tell she was struggling, probably as much as Sienna. Maybe that was the connection. Lainey greeted me with a hug and an inquisitive look. Why can I smell perfume on you? She asked, sniffing harder and raising an eyebrow. I explained what happened, and she looked shocked. Oh my goodness, Luke. That is so considerate. I am glad to see some of the old you is filtering through. I knew this mean nasty thing that inhabited your body would have to leave sooner or later. The gentle dig couldn't bruise my high spirits. Lainey made me a late supper, and we snuggled together on the sofa. So this woman, is she pretty? Laughing at her nosiness, I chuckled. Yes, actually, she's very pretty. Are you going to work out a payment plan or something? She smirked. Yeah, or something. I hope she will find some way to repay me. Lainey stared up into my eyes, trying to decipher whether I was joking. I broke under her intense glare. There is no payment. It was a gift. She has no money. Her car is a mess. I was just trying to help. She hugged me. Hey, settle down. I was only asking. I delivered Sienna's car the next night, and as I pulled up into her driveway, she walked out looking as pretty as a picture. Shyly, she hugged me. Thanks, Luke. This means a lot to me. Smiling, I sighed. It's no big deal. She let me go and walked around the car, seeing the new lights and tires. How much did this really cost? She asked. None of your business. I groaned as I grabbed my toolkit out of the trunk. What are you doing? She asked. I'm fixing that darn lawnmower. She tried to stop me, but I was on a mission. With the old fuel drained, a new air filter and spark plug, it started easily on about the 100th pull. I mowed the lawns, and I had to start on the highest level, slowly working my way down until the lawns looked like you could walk across them. Sienna brought out a glass of water and some cookies to say thanks. We chatted a bit about her life as Katie ran around playing on the grass, rolling around like a mad thing, her clothes covered in green grass stains. Luke, if you want to stay for dinner, I have enough for you to join us? I nodded. Thanks, that would be nice. Over dinner, we had to listen to Katie Rabbit on talking endlessly about nothing. Sienna was a very good cook, and it wasn't until we were finishing up I realized I had forgotten to ring Lainey and tell her I would be late. What's more, I had left my phone in the car. Oh well, she was going to be annoyed. I had to get Sienna to drive me back to the workshop where I had left my car. We stood staring into each other's eyes as she fidgeted. Thanks for everything, Luke. I hugged her. No worries, Sienna. It was my pleasure. She giggled. Even the lawns? As she drove off, I sighed. Holy cow, she was something, smart and pretty. How the heck she let herself get dragged down by her mean boyfriend amazed me. Still, I suppose we all do stupid stuff for love. Arriving home was painful. Lainey chewed me out, giving me both barrels at short range. She fumed. Where the heck have you been? And if you say with that girl, I'm going to whack you. Guess you better do it then. Her anger turned into fury, and she hauled off and punched me as hard as she could, and followed it up with a shower of slaps until I had to grab her hands, forcing her to stop. I pulled her in close. I thought you didn't care? She bit my hand, leaving a deep bite mark. You could have called me. I don't care about her. I was worried. You didn't answer your phone. I thought you might have had an accident. Holding her tight and ignoring the pain from the bite. I'm sorry, Lainey. Yes, I should have called. But I was busy and I forgot. Yeah, I bet you were. Eloise and Craig stood in the doorway watching, and I walked over and hugged them both, lifting Craig into a cuddle. Inside, I explained what I had been doing and why I was late. Lainey gave me a very skeptical glare. Do you expect me to believe that? Believe what you want? It's the truth, but I don't care. I don't have to answer to you. You gave up that right some time ago. Trembling with emotion, she sniffled. Are we ever going to get past that? Not me. I still think about it and try to live with it every day, and it still hurts. I am trying to forgive, or at least forget, but it's hard, Lainey. I love you, but this is hard. Hanging around with that girl is my punishment, is it? No, I have done nothing more than help out a fellow human being who needs a hand. Later, as we were doing dishes, she whispered hoarsely, We need to talk, and I know you're not going to like it. I stiffened at hearing those words. I nodded. Yeah, okay, what is it? Luke, I feel terrible. Every day I swim in this sea of murky guilt, and I feel like everything that happened to Corey's kids is my fault. They are in a terrible state. They cry all the time. Bella's struggling at school. Every time I see her become more and more withdrawn. She is sad and upset. She is counseling, and I want to help. It was how I had been feeling as well. I hadn't seen them, but I felt guilty as well. The poor kids were innocent, and none of this was their fault. Okay, we could support them financially, buy them new clothes or something. Lainey shook her head. Nope, that isn't going to cut it. You can't buy your way out of this, Luke. I want to bring the girls here, and I want us to look after them until he is released. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. She wanted me to look after his kids. No, sorry, Lainey, but that's not happening. You can't honestly expect me to do that after he messed up my life. Shaking her head, she hissed. How did he mess up your life? It was just a moment in time. Her inability to simply say sorry bothered me. She accepted no responsibility. She still treated it like it was nothing. Luke, come on, we've moved on, haven't we? It's over, but those kids are suffering and they need a home. It's our fault. I know you only did it to get some stupid revenge, but that doesn't make it right. Please, babe, let's try to reduce their suffering. No. I know what you're saying and I feel guilty as well, but I'm not looking after his kids. He'll probably be released in a few months anyway. She glared at me with a defeated look in her eye. Luke, you're being mean. Where's that caring guy who helped out a stranger? Where's he hiding? I want him back. If you spent all afternoon mowing a stranger's lawns and spending our money fixing her car, surely we can help out a friend. I nodded. Yeah, we could help out a friend, but Corey isn't my friend. He stopped being my friend the day he decided to hurt you. Things were a little cold around our house for the next few days. I hoped the weekend might give us a little break. However, at Eloise's soccer match on Saturday, I had to watch as she hugged and played with Belle, and Lainey and Gail, the woman who was looking after them, were locked in a tight conversation. I noticed the furtive stares over at me as they talked. After the game, Gail, Lainey, Belle, and little Harper were all waiting by our car. Eloise ran up and threw her arms around my waist. Dad, can Belle come for a sleepover? I could see the intense glares and I felt the depth of her request. If I said no, I would never hear the end of it from her. I sighed, yeah, okay, but it's just for one night. She broke into a huge smile and jumped up and hugged me. Thanks, Dad, you're the best. As I piled Belle's things in the car, I noticed Lainey putting in Harper's car seat as well. I roughly grabbed her arm. What the heck are you doing? She apologized. Sorry, babe, Harper is suffering separation anxiety. They can't be separated. Come on, it's just a sleepover. Gail just needs a break. There was no escaping this without appearing to be a big jerk, so I limply nodded. We stopped on the way home and picked up pizza for an early dinner. Lainey was happier than I had seen in a long time. She ran around after Harper making sure he was happy. Belle and Eloise were just like old times, laughing and playing. That left Craig and me to entertain each other. Bedtime came and Lainey set about showing her appreciation for letting her have her way. The night was wonderful. In the morning I was woken up with a beautiful hug. The day slipped away with chores. Lainey disappeared with the girls to do shopping. I knew it was going to be an expensive trip, but I accepted that. Regardless of what I said to Lainey, I did feel guilt towards what happened to Corey's kids. It was about 3 when they returned. I walked out to help carry the groceries in. The back of the wagon was full of groceries. It took 4 trips to get them all inside. I snapped. Jesus, Lainey, I expected clothes and presents, but why have we brought out the supermarket? She laughed, honey. We just needed a few things. Realization of what she was planning seeped in. A few things, huh? Well, what time is Gail coming to pick up the kids? She turned away quickly, stuttering. Oh, I'm not sure. Lainey, don't lie to me. When is she coming? Han, wouldn't it be good to give Gail a break for a few days? The kids are happy. Little Harper is having a ball playing with Craig. What do you think about letting them stay for a few days? Actually, I think it's a very bad idea. Those kids are messed up enough and switching from house to house will not help. They have to go back to Gail's where they can have a stable life. Well, what if they stayed here? We could keep them. They get along so well with our kids, and they don't enjoy being at Gail's. Her kids are too old, and the last thing they want is these guys hanging around. I said no, Lainey, and I meant it. If Gail can't handle them, I will call Child Protective Services to come and get them. For goodness sake. She exploded. You got their father locked up. It's you who ruined their lives. The least you can do is help out. Angrily, I snapped back. Their father is locked up because he's a drug dealer. Not my fault. You set him up, you jerk. He told me he didn't know anything about those guns, and you and I both know how he feels about hard drugs. You planted those guns. I laughed. We've discussed this. Come on, Lainey, why are you on his side? Do you think so little of me that you believe what he says and think I'm lying? Slumping and sighing deeply, she said, no, babe, but you already told me you called the cops. She burst into tears. Why, Luke? Why did you do it? He didn't hurt you. If you hadn't gotten all bitter and twisted, we could have gotten through it. I was sick of arguing the same thing over and over, so I snarled. Call Gail and get those kids out of here. I don't want them here. She stood defiantly. No, those kids need some love in their lives, and if you can't live with that, then maybe it's you who should leave. I nodded. Yeah, you know what? You're right. Consider it done. As I turned and walked towards the bedroom, I realized she was right. This was over. I was sick of all the drama. Things weren't going to change, and she wasn't going to change. I packed in silence until Eloise came in crying. She had obviously heard the argument. "Daddy, don't go, please. We'll be good, I promise." She grabbed my arm, pulling me back. I pulled her into my arms and hugged her tight. "Baby, I have to go, but don't worry. I'm not going away. Your mother and I just need some space." As I walked out into the living room with Eloise under my arm, Lainey sighed. "Luke, don't go. I didn't mean it. I don't want you to go, not like this. Stay, we can get past this if we talk." Shaking my head, I grimaced. "No, you said it, and I think it's what you want. While you choose him over me, it proves what you really think." As I packed my things into the car, she walked out. "Luke, I didn't mean all that stuff. I know you wouldn't do anything that malicious. We just have to help fix what happened, and helping the kids is the first step." We fell into each other's arms and hugged, swinging each other back and forth. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Don't know at the moment. All I know is I refuse to listen to you talking about me like that. Maybe I shouldn't have reported him, but he stole my wife and family, and there had to be consequences." "Luke, this situation frustrates me. He didn't take anything from you. I'm still here, I still love you and only you. He took away my belief that you loved me." "Oh, come on, Luke. All this pride and tough guy stuff is nonsense. It's just a bunch of crap. All we did was mess up. I love you. Yes, I know I should have told you, but think about it, nobody got hurt. Where was the harm? Goodbye, Lainey. I will come by to see the kids as often as I can." She kicked the car as I reversed out of the driveway. I crashed at the workshop in the office, and my mind went into overdrive. This was the end for me, the last straw. On Monday around lunchtime, Lainey came into the workshop with Harper and Craig on her arm. She handed me some sandwiches. "Can we talk about this, Luke?" I led her into the office, and as I closed the door, Craig jumped into my arms, and I gave him a hug. She smiled warmly as she watched. "Luke, honey, I want you to come home. This is silly. I want nothing more, but it's not happening with the way things are." "Why, Luke? They aren't any trouble. All the kids get along great. It's the right thing for us to do. This isn't helping, Lainey. You aren't listening to me. You're trying to make me feel guilty for not wanting to do something I don't want to do. My life is as important as everyone else's." She sagged. "Then what do we do? What happens now? I am staying here. If you want to talk, then I am staying here." "Come back later," with a snarling growl. She led the kids out. Craig gave me a last hug before they vanished. I spent the rest of the afternoon going over finances. I knew the law wouldn't help me. The courts always side with the mother in these instances, but no matter the reasons, she could have cheated on me, and it wouldn't make a difference. She would be able to stay in the house, and I would end up paying for it. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Thrown out of my own home, she messed up, and I would end up footing the bill. It made me furious. I knew what was going to happen. The courts would freeze our accounts, and they would give Lainey access to them. Then they would sue me. It would take months to get through the courts. The first thing I had to do was withdraw as much cash as I could from our private and business accounts and hide it. The next day, I acted quickly. I went straight to the bank and canceled our credit cards. I withdrew half of our joint account in cash. I removed her authority from the business account and took out all but a few $100s in cash. If the courts froze the accounts, at least I could survive. Lainey walked in around 7 that night. I was eating takeaways and on my 5th soda. She laughed loudly. "Ha, I should have known you would be eating junk food." She grabbed a soda and sat down beside me. "So, this is where you're sleeping, huh?" "Yeah, to keep costs down, I knocked out the wall between the office and the storeroom and put a bed in there." I nodded, taking a long sip of my soda. "What do you want, Lainey?" "I want you to come home. The kids miss you, and I miss you. This isn't right." "Well, you can fix it. Send Corey's kids back to Gail's place, and we can, as you say, try to fix it." She chugged her soda in one gulp, burping. "I'm not doing that. Taking care of those kids is the right thing to do. We caused it, so we need to fix it. Then there's nothing left to say. I'm not looking after or paying to look after the kids of the guy who betrayed me. Sorry, Lainey, but I'm not doing it." "For heaven's sake, Luke. He was your friend, and you know it. You guys used to have so much fun together working on cars and stuff. Why can't you understand that there was nothing to it? If that's the case, then why are you looking after his kids? Because somebody has to, and regardless of what happened, he is still our friend like hell he is. I'm afraid that doesn't work for me, babe. He is still my friend. If that's how you feel, then you need to leave right now. Leave and don't ever come back. Babe, please put aside this tough guy act. It's not you, and this macho stuff isn't working. Sucking in a deep breath, I gave her the bad news. Lainey, you need to know that I have canceled all our credit cards. I have left half of the balance in the joint account, but from now on, you're on your own. I'm not paying to look after his kids. Her thin smile disappeared, and she snarled. What? You jerk? How are we going to live? Your problem, not mine. Slamming her fist down on the desk, she barked, you can't get away with this. I'm going to see a lawyer. That's my money too. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Yeah, it was going to be a tough battle. Once the lawyers got involved, I would be in trouble. The next day, I started the next phase of my plan. I paid all the outstanding business invoices and started offering cheaper jobs for people who paid in cash. Surprisingly, many people took that option. The legal battle began right away. She went to Wynn's Work and Income NZ to get assistance, and of course they called me, but I pleaded innocence, explaining I didn't know what was going on. They put a freeze on our accounts, including the business. Things escalated quickly, and she tried to borrow money against the mortgage, but couldn't without my approval. Because all our accounts were frozen, she couldn't even get a credit card. The bills started piling up: insurance, telephone, power, internet. She managed to get on a solo parent's benefit, and with Wynn's assistance, got a temporary hold on the mortgage. I got by on cash jobs and the money I had stashed away. It did get hard when I had to let the two guys I had working for me go. They were friends, and I had known them for many years. With the business winding down, I knew I wouldn't be able to pay them. My plan meant scaling back, so it didn't show a profit. I let the inventory dwindle down and only ordered what customers would pay for. It got messy, mean, and unfair, but I didn't care. I didn't file for divorce, but Wynn's called us into a meeting to see if there was any way to come to an agreement. They didn't believe my successful business had suddenly turned into a failing one. They also explained the consequences if they caught me hiding money to avoid paying spousal support. During the meeting, Lainey tried to explain that she didn't want us to live apart. She wanted me home. The mediator, a woman, was definitely on her side and had already formed her opinion of me, thinking I was just another stubborn father trying to avoid paying child support. And Lainey was painted as a saint trying to help at-risk children. She became very upset when I blurted out, I'm not taking care of the kids of the guy my wife was involved with. She turned bright red and growled, that kind of language is not acceptable here. If you refuse to cooperate, things will become very difficult for you. We will start by deducting $1,000 every week from your business account immediately. We may increase that if it's not enough. I shrugged. Good luck with that. It doesn't even make that much. She waved some documents at me. These papers show that your business has been making almost $5,000 a week. So we believe this is a fair deduction. I left the meeting seething with fury, and to make things worse, Lainey had a big smirk on her face. I went straight to see my accountant, and he gave me some bad news. They could take that money even if it wasn't there, and I would owe it as a debt. The account would just go into overdraft to cover it. I asked if I could stop the withdrawal by refusing to accept the overdraft. He laughed. Sorry, there's no way to hide from the IRS. So what are my options? Well, what if you just pay the money? $1,000 a week is not much compared to what your business usually brings in. No way. I'm not giving her a cent. Then your only choice is to shut down the business completely and go bankrupt. Then let's do it. I've paid all my bills. I only have insurance and rates to worry about. So that's what I did. I shut down the business. It caused a big commotion, and I was called back to Wynn's to explain. I simply told them that the business wasn't sustainable and I had no choice but to close it. She asked if I was going to rely on government support. I laughed. No, I'll manage without that. It was a big mess. Assessors came to check out the workshop, inspect my inventory to see if they could sell anything, but I had already sold off everything. I didn't even have any tires. They left disappointed and empty-handed. I managed to get by with under-the-table cash jobs that I heard about through word of mouth. I made just enough to get by. My motto was, she's not getting a single penny from me. One evening, I ran into Sienna at the supermarket. We chatted, and she asked how things were going. I explained that I was separated from my wife now. She gave me a quick hug and offered her sympathy, as well as an invitation for dinner that night. I was surprised when I arrived at her place. It looked amazing, with beautiful gardens and a well-kept interior. When I asked her about it, she simply said that seeing the work I did inspired her to improve her own garden, and having a working lawnmower made a huge difference. We had a lovely dinner, and her daughter Katie entertained us with made-up fairy tales. It only made me miss my own family even more. After Katie went to bed, Sienna and I sat out on her patio, enjoying the evening. "So Luke, what are you going to do now? Not sure yet. I think only time will tell. Do you think there's any chance for you and your wife?" I shrugged and mumbled, "I can't answer that because I don't know. Honestly, the pain is still too fresh right now." She gave me a warm hug. "I'm sorry, Luke. I hate to see marriages fall apart. You must miss your kids a lot, right?" Nodding, I agreed. "Yeah, I miss them so much. I hate being away from them. I see them every weekend and as much as I can, but it's just not the same." I left her place with a warm feeling. She was a kind and caring person, just like Lainey used to be. Having the kids on the weekends was difficult. I didn't really have a place for them to stay, so they could only be with me during the day. No sleepovers. Going to their soccer games was tough. Lainey refused to talk to me. I would pick the kids up at the gate, and it felt like there was a huge divide between us. So it was surprising when she stormed into the workshop one evening, furious, with tears streaming down her face. "Luke, you jerk. We're going to lose everything. The house, the business, everything. This wasn't news to me. I had already talked to the bank, and they warned me that if they were forced to foreclose, they would take the business first." I shrugged my shoulders and muttered through clenched teeth, "Yes, Lainey, I already spoke to the bank. Damn it. You fired Eddie and Mike, and now they're struggling. Don't you care about anyone? I could ask you the same thing. You didn't care about me." She slumped onto the desk next to me. "Luke, can't we put all this behind us? We all miss you. I never wanted you to leave in the first place." Gritting my teeth, I asked, "You sure did a messed up way of showing it." She grimaced and snarled, "Damn it, babe. We couldn't just abandon the kids. They're innocent. They didn't do anything to deserve what happened. They're homeless with no family. What was I supposed to do? All I want is our family back." She picked up my hand and twirled my wedding band around my finger. "Don't you feel any guilt about what happened?" "Yes, of course I do. When I called the police that day, I didn't know how big his operation was. All I wanted was for him to get in trouble, not go to prison. By taking care of the girls, we're trying to make up for what you did. Luke, I never stopped loving you. I want you back. What about your actions? You caused all this, Lainey. I might have overreacted, but this is your fault." Her head fell, and she stared at the ground. I mumbled, "The only reason you want me back is because you need the money." "It's been months. Why wait until now?" "Because I couldn't bring myself to talk to you. For the past few months, I've hated you for putting us through all of this. We're going to lose everything. Can't you understand? The business, the house. Where are we supposed to live? Look, Lainey, I didn't want to leave, but you made it impossible for me to stay. What does it matter? I'm tired of fighting with you. The kids are sad. They miss you as much as I do. I know things got screwed up, but I want our old life back. Look around, Luke. You've driven this place into the ground. You used to be so proud of it. You loved this place. Look at what you've done. And for what? Just to avoid paying me a few measly dollars. The business was doing so well, we could afford it. But no, you had to humiliate me, make me beg for help at Wynn's. It wasn't about the money. It was about principle. He did something wrong, and I was supposed to just accept it? That's not right. That's why I did all of this. Yeah, right? It's just some twisted male pride thing. All this pain and suffering just because I had feelings with another man. Damn it, it didn't change the way I see you or feel about you. I still love you, and I miss being with you. If you were happy, why did you look elsewhere? All this talk about love is nonsense. Obviously you weren't happy, or you wouldn't have done it. And don't tell me it was just because you were under the influence. That's just an excuse. You accepted his advances because you wanted to. Yeah, okay, you know that. We sat in silence, spinning our wheels and getting nowhere. In the end, I blurted out, "Fine, I'll put some money in the account. Enough to buy us some time to figure things out." "Damn it," she snarled. "Babe, I don't care about the house. I want you back. You can't tell me you're happy here. You can't even cook proper meals. I won't go back home just to find the same problems. I don't trust you. What happens when some other guy offers you drugs? Will you give in to him too? I don't even know who else you've been with." She fluttered her big green eyes and clasped her hands together. "I'm begging you, come back home." "No, Lainey. I can't do it. You're right, I'm not happy, but I don't see any other way. Screw you, Luke. Just screw you. You're not just hurting me. You're hurting the kids too. You're punishing everyone." I fought off the bank, releasing just enough money to buy some time. I was shocked when I heard that Corey was being released early on bail due to overcrowding. However, he would be on home detention for the rest of his sentence. Corrections found him a small 2-bedroom apartment just a few streets away from our place so Belle could stay in the same school. He was locked in by an ankle bracelet and couldn't even leave to take the kids to school. He was completely dependent on his friends to do his shopping. I heard through friends that he started selling drugs again, but now he couldn't grow weed anymore since his place was checked daily by the police. So he resorted to dealing with harder drugs. Going to jail only introduced him to new connections. I felt sorry for the kids. He was probably using those drugs himself. Sienna came to the workshop with her car acting up. When she stepped out, she had a smile on her face. "Don't worry, this time I can pay." I laughed along with her. "So what seems to be the problem?" She looked around and said, "Wow, what happened here? It looks like a closing down sale." I chuckled. "Yeah, it's kind of like that." "So what happened to the car?" She shrugged and smiled. "I'm not sure. It's difficult to start and runs really rough. Upon inspection, I discovered it was a blown head gasket, and the repairs would be costly." I glanced at her sitting in the office, grabbed a rag to wipe my hands, and walked in. I have good news and bad news. The good news is that it's just the head gasket. The bad news is that it will still be expensive. I saw her flinch. "Expensive? How much are we talking about?" "Well, it'll need some work done, and unfortunately I can't do that here. The gasket won't be that expensive, but the repairs will require machining, which will cost around $400. She frowned and mumbled, "Ouch, what about your labor?" "That won't be much. The whole thing might cost about $500. Her shoulders slumped, and the frown deepened. "Can I still use the car as it is?" Frowning, I replied, "It might run for a while, but it will get rougher and eventually break down. Plus, it could cause more damage." "I guess I better get used to walking then. I could use the exercise anyway. Leave it with me. How much can you afford?" "Maybe 300. Nodding, I made a cup of tea, and we sat for a chat. Katie had started school, so the car was important to her. We talked about everyday things, and she asked about Lainey. I shrugged. "I think we're done." I drove her home with the warning that she would be without her car for a few days. When I removed the head, I discovered it was cracked. I considered getting it welded, but instead I hunted around and found a good reconditioned one for $500 from a car wrecker. However, it would take at least a couple of days to arrive. Instead of calling her, I went to her place after work so I could also drive her to the supermarket if needed. On the way, Katie jumped on me excitedly, and Sienna hugged me. Friday night, I delivered Sienna's car. As expected, she tried to pay me, but I refused. She hugged me so tightly that it almost hurt, and Katie joined in seeing her mother's excitement. "Luke, I can give you $200. I said I won't take your money, and I mean it. Consider it a gift from one friend to another. I still owe you for all those dinners you cooked for me." She made a face. "But you said you had to get it repaired. You must have had to pay for it." He owed me a favor. Honestly, it was nothing. The next few days passed by, interrupted only by Sienna, who brought something nice for lunch most days. We always ended up chatting and laughing. She was quickly becoming my best friend. Lainey, on the other hand, was becoming more difficult to deal with. Surprisingly, she stopped asking for money, and the bank stopped complaining. It seemed like Lainey was making the house payment, so they were happy. All I had to do was contribute enough to cover the business expenses. It made me nervous about where she found the money. Combine that with her erratic behavior, and it only made me more fearful. Now that she didn't have Corey's kids, I expected her to pressure me to move back home, but she never did. If anything, her cold attitude got worse. When I picked up the kids, she didn't even bother coming to the door. A couple of weeks later, Sienna showed up at the workshop. "Luke, can you do me a favor?" As if I could say no. "Yeah, of course." "What do you need this time?" Embarrassed, she whispered, "It's nothing like that." I just bought a secondhand trampoline for Katie from a lady down the street, and it won't fit in my car. If it's too much trouble, I can find another way. I realized I had unintentionally insulted her. I'm sorry, Sienna. I didn't mean it to sound like that. I was trying to make a joke. Actually, I have some free time now. Is it okay if we do it now? She laughed. Now would be perfect, actually. I hooked up the trailer, and as we drove, she sighed, Luke, I am so grateful for everything you've done for me and Katie. But you don't have to. Back at the workshop, I got the impression that you might be getting tired of helping us out all the time. I patted her hand, which rested on her knee. I was just trying to be funny, Sienna. You're always the best part of my day, and I love being able to help. Her thank you was a bright, beaming smile. She directed me to the street Corey lived on, and I was surprised to see Lainey's car parked outside. I slowed down, feeling a cold shiver run down my spine. My whole body trembled. As I came to a stop, Sienna asked, "Are you okay?" "You look like you just saw a ghost." I shook my head, trying to regain some composure. In a way, that's exactly what happened. That's my wife's car, parked where it shouldn't be. "Oh no, are you okay, Luke? Should we go? We can pick up the trampoline later." Her use of the word trampoline made me chuckle. "No, it's okay. We'll do it now." As we got out of the car, Sienna rushed over and hugged me. It might be innocent. She might be able to explain. I nodded, yeah, maybe we loaded the trampoline onto the trailer, and as she went to pay the lady, I quickly intercepted her and paid instead. Sienna growled, but I brushed off her complaint. "Sienna, you may have done me the biggest favor today. I am happy to pay." She hugged me, but unlike every other time, it was a friendly. It still felt comforting, though. "Thank you, Luke." As we drove back onto the road, I drove slowly, realizing we had been there for over an hour. As we pulled up to Corey's place, Lainey's car was still parked there. We delivered the trampoline, and I went back to work, trying to make sense of everything. Was she seeing him again? Over the next few days, I borrowed customers' cars and drove to Corey's place. Each time, I noticed Lainey's car still parked there, but I also noticed her dropping small packages off at different addresses. She was delivering something suspicious, possibly drugs. Damn, I muttered. My brain was racing. She was seeing him again and dealing drugs for him. Shit, I wondered if she had drugs at home. Were the kids in danger? Were these criminals hanging around our place too? What the hell was she thinking? I decided to confront her. I saw the look of shock on her face when she opened the door. "Luke, baby, it's so good to see you." Her eyes widened and she looked anxious, shifting from foot to foot. "Lainey, I'm just here to gather some information. Are you seeing Corey again?" Shocked by my direct approach, she became defensive. "Why do you care? You haven't even talked to me for months. I want to know. Just answer the question." "Are you seeing him?" Sighing, she murmured, "Luke, what do you want? Why are you here? Are you just jealous? Is that why you don't want me but don't want him to have me either?" "Actually, I'm worried about the kids. If you're hanging around with him and involved in drugs, they're going to be exposed to it, and I don't want them harmed." She pushed me hard in the chest. "Get out, you jerk. Get lost and stay out of our lives." 2 days later, I heard sirens, and I knew what was happening. Later that day, Lainey called me from the police station. "Luke, I need your help. I've been arrested." Pretending I didn't know, I asked, "What for?" "We can talk about that later. They're releasing me, but I need a ride to pick the kids up and take them home." When I didn't answer, she rasped, "Luke, you have to help. They have the kids, and I need to get them." The only reason they were releasing her was because she was a mother with one child under 5. That's what saved her. I decided to step in. She had her chance and screwed it up. Now it was up to me. I did go down to the police station, mostly to gather information about what would happen and what rights I had. I was taken into an office, where a counselor and a police support officer laid out my options. They preferred not to release the kids into Lainey's care, but they did try to keep families together when possible. We agreed that if I could find somewhere to live, I would have temporary custody of the kids until further arrangements were made. I was a bit stumped. Lainey would be staying at home, so we couldn't go there. Most of my friends had distanced themselves when it became public that I had reported Corey. My only real friend now was Sienna. She answered on the first ring, "Hey Luke, how are things?" I explained the situation before asking, "Sienna, could we stay at your place for a few days until I can figure something out?" She didn't hesitate. Of course you can. Stay as long as you need. As I was led back into the main office, Lainey spotted me and ran over. Oh, thank God you're here. I was getting worried. Lainey, I can give you a ride home, but I only came here to sort things out regarding the kids. She looked confused. What the hell are you talking about, Luke? Lainey, I'm taking the kids. They're not safe with you. Like hell. She screamed hysterically, you're not taking my kids, you jerk. The police officer who had escorted her out stepped in. Ma am, if you don't settle down, you'll be going back inside. She looked back and forth between us before breaking down. Luke, baby, please don't do this. Please, I'm begging, not the kids. Lainey, until you sort your stuff out, I am keeping them. They're staying with me. When you can prove you're capable, we will sort something out. Until then, they stay with me. Her stubbornness returned. Jesus, you haven't got anywhere for them to stay. They can't stay with you at the workshop. We are going to be staying with a friend. The anger behind her eyes was barely contained. Friends, what friends? You haven't got any. Everybody hates you for being mean. The cop grabbed her arm. Lady, I warned you. Either calm down or you'll be spending the night. Furious, she barked, he's trying to take my children, for goodness sake. He nodded. Sounds like a good idea to me. Forget you. You don't know anything about me, smug jerk. Okay, lady. That's it. I think you can stay for the night. He turned to me. You can leave. She's staying with us. I turned and walked out, and she started screaming and yelling. That was the end of it. The cops grabbed her and she kicked and flailed her arms like an out-of-control helicopter. Noo. She screamed. You mean heartless person? You'll pay for this. I picked up the kids and it was a tearful greeting as I explained that Mom was not going to be around for a while. We turned up at Sienna's place and she met us at the door. Katie dragged Eloise and Craig away to show them where their room was. Sienna greeted me with a big hug and I apologized. I'm sorry for all this, Sienna. We'll be gone in a day or so, I promise. She smiled. Luke, after everything you have done for us, you can stay as long as you want. It will be nice for Katie to have other kids to play with. As we walked into the living room, the smell of dinner cooking was overpowering. It smelled amazing. Dinner was a bit somber, although Katie chattered away and Sienna said all the right things, and slowly it warmed up. After dinner, Eloise and I did the dishes as Craig and Katie played. Dad, what's going to happen to Belle and Harper? I don't know, sweetie. That's all out of my control. Dad, can't we help them? We could go home and live there. No, honey, your mom is going to be living there. Then why can't we all go home and be together again? Because Mom and I aren't getting along. Look, honey, she is having problems, which is why you have to stay with me. After they had gone to bed, Sienna and I sat together with a coffee. Luke, I was serious. Stay as long as you like. It will be nice to have company. I gave her a hug. Thanks, Sienna. I'll sleep on your sofa. She smiled. If you want to. I sensed that there was an offer of something else hiding behind her nodding head, but the sofa was no worse than the tiny bed I had been using at the workshop, and I didn't want to confuse things more than they were. The morning was hectic as I ran around getting the kids ready for school and dropping them off. Sienna volunteered to watch Craig, which was a godsend. Lainey was released the next day and stopped at the workshop on her way home. She was beside herself and couldn't stop crying, apologizing over and over again. She had been there when the armed defenders burst in and arrested Corey. There were enough drugs there that this time Corey was going away for a very long time. This was the hardest thing I had ever done in my life. Lainey didn't realize that it was me who had reported them. I said, Lainey, you have a chance here. Clean your act up and get straight. Stop taking that stuff and straighten your life out. If you don't, I warn you now, I'm keeping the kids. I think the reality of the situation was finally sinking in. Luke, what am I going to do? I can't do this on my own, not without the kids. Sorry, Lainey, but you are going to be on your own. Our relationship is over, but I promise, if you try to sort yourself out, I will help out where I can, and when you're clean, the kids can come back and live with you. I could see by the look in her eyes that she was scared. Sienna was amazing. She took over running the kids around, taking them to school while I focused on taking as much work as I could. Luckily, my reputation was still good and word spread quickly that I was taking on more work. At the weekend, I took the kids over to visit Lainey. She was a mess. Her eyes were red and puffy. She had obviously been crying. But the moment the kids ran to her and they shared a group hug, her demeanor changed instantly. She made lunch and I stayed while the kids had their visit. It went pretty well. Lainey didn't say much to me, although I did hear her questioning the kids about where they were staying and what was happening, and I saw the look of horror on her face when she found out. As we were leaving, she took me aside. Luke, I don't care about anything else, but I want the kids back. I'll do whatever you want, but please don't take them from me. Lainey, this isn't about me taking the kids. I'm not doing this to punish you. As soon as you're back on your feet, you can have them back. She hugged me tight. Thank you. I still love you. Believe me, I never stopped loving you. Sorry, Lainey, but I don't believe that. If you loved me, we wouldn't be where we are now. Her shoulders slumped as she gazed wistfully. If you give me a chance, I will prove it. Maybe it was the incentive she needed. Before the following week was over, she had a job. It wasn't much of a job, but it was a job working at the paint shop downtown. Lainey, to her credit, knuckled down, and I did my bit. When I was sure she wasn't using, I slipped her money under the table to keep the bill collectors at bay. She also formed a strong relationship with her probation officer, and that was the crux for the change in her. Julie, her PO, was amazing, much more like a counselor than a cop. The painful part for Lainey was the loss of her family. She hated the fact the kids weren't living with her, and the longer it dragged on, the worse it became. She saw the happy little unit the kids had formed with Sienna, and she hated being replaced. Sienna is an amazing woman, and with every passing day, she formed a tighter and tighter bond with Eloise and Craig. The house was turning into a home, and the change in the kids was obvious for all to see. Sienna as well changed. Her motherly instincts showed through, but for me, it was becoming difficult to contain my desires. She was stunning, and being this close made it impossible to keep them hidden. As I was making up the bed on the sofa, she snuck up behind me. You don't have to sleep out here, Luke. Sienna, you're a beautiful, gorgeous young woman. You don't want me? I'm way too old for you. She slipped into my arms, and we fell into a deep, loving hug. Things didn't go so easily on the legal or financial front. I was either going to have to get my business up and running properly, or we would lose everything. The house, the business premises, they were all tied together. Everything I had worked for, my whole life, was wrapped up in that package. The answer was going to be Lainey. I organized a meeting before her trial and laid it out. Lainey, I want out. I want a divorce. I saw the look of horror as I explained my plan. The final straw for her was I wanted to separate the house and business. I made her an offer. Lainey, give me an uncontested divorce and agree to the breakup of assets, allowing us to go our own separate ways, then I will help at your trial. The look of horror was deepening rather than going away. Lainey, I will support you as a character witness and provide financial support for you and the kids. I want to help you gain custody of them, and your lawyer can use the fact that the children need you as part of your defense. As unhappy as she was about it, she also knew that accepting my offer was the only way for her to get the kids back. Luke, you're not giving me a chance. I feel like my options are limited here. I'm sorry, Lainey, but I can't see any other way forward. But why couldn't we try again? You and me, I still have love for you, and all I want is for our family to be together. She burst into tears and couldn't control her emotions. Lainey, you brought this upon yourself. If you wanted to give our marriage another chance, why did you go back to Corey amidst her sniffles? She whimpered. Luke, you left me with no money, no support, and no love. Corey at least offered me some affection, and the money I earned helped me make ends meet. Yeah, running illegal activities. Do you realize how much danger you put the kids in? What if people found out you had illegal substances in the house? Her trial was straightforward. Luckily, she received a suspended 2-year jail sentence and a fine. It was all thanks to her clean record, her probation officer's report, and my statement vouching for her character. At least she had her freedom, a place to live, a job, and of course, the kids. It was now her responsibility to make it all work. As for me, I regained control of my business. Although I couldn't escape child support this time, I didn't mind. I love my kids, and I'm happy to support them financially. I just didn't want to pay for his child. Lainey and I developed a friendly relationship that included regular visitation rights. Both Lainey and I faced a couple of years of hard work ahead. She had to work long hours to make ends meet, while I focused on rebuilding the business. Lainey surprised me by taking in Corey's children. I probably shouldn't have been surprised, but at least this time, I wasn't financially responsible for them. It did bring me some comfort knowing that they would have a good life. As for what happens when Corey is released, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Sienna and I continued to strengthen our relationship. The kids all got along well, and we all looked forward to our weekend visits. Lainey and Sienna were able to establish a civil relationship. Eloise and Craig grew fond of Sienna, though maybe not as much